Please, there must be something you can do. We really need this.
The grocery store was unusually quiet that evening. Outside, the wind howled through the parking lot, carrying dry leaves across the empty asphalt. Inside, fluorescent lights hummed softly, flickering every now and then. It was the kind of evening that made everything feel heavier, the air, the silence, even people's thoughts. Daniel pushed his small cart toward the checkout line, his daughter Lily sitting inside, hugging her little stuffed bunny. He was tired, not the kind of tired that sleep could fix, but the kind that came from working 2 jobs and pretending everything was fine. He glanced at the cart. A gallon of milk, bread, cereal, a few apples, and, of course, the small tub of chocolate ice cream that Lily had picked out herself. For good behavior, he'd told her with a grin, though he would have bought it anyway. Seeing her smile was worth more than any overtime shift. Life had changed in ways he never imagined 3 years ago when Emily, his wife, passed away after a short illness. Since then, it had been just him and Lily. He had become a father, mother, teacher, and protector all in one. He'd learned how to braid her hair, patch up scraped knees, and make pancakes shaped like hearts, because that's what Emily used to do. When he reached the checkout, he noticed there was only one cashier working. A young woman with auburn hair pulled into a messy bun was standing behind the counter, scanning items for an elderly couple. She looked worn out, her movements careful and slow. When it was finally his turn, she forced a polite smile. Her name tag said, Mia. "Good evening," she murmured softly, her voice barely louder than the hum of the conveyor belt. Daniel nodded back. Evening. He began unloading the groceries onto the belt, and that's when he noticed it. Her hands were trembling. Not a little shake from the cold, but real, uncontrollable trembling. She tried to scan the milk carton, but it slipped slightly from her grasp. Daniel instinctively reached forward and steadied it for her. "You okay?" he asked quietly, concern threading through his voice. Mia gave a small, embarrassed laugh. "Yeah, I'm fine, just a bit tired. Long shift." He nodded, but he could tell she was lying. Her eyes were red, the kind of red that comes from crying, and her fingers had tiny cuts, maybe from handling boxes or something rough. But there was something else, something deeper, behind the polite smile she tried to wear. As Mia scanned the rest of the items, Lily leaned forward on the counter, her big blue eyes filled with concern. "Miss, why are your hands shaking?" she asked innocently. Mia froze. Her lips parted, but no words came out at first. The question had caught her off guard. Her eyes flickered toward Daniel, who was about to gently tell Lily not to ask such personal questions, but then he stopped. There was something in Mia's face that told him to let her answer. Mia swallowed hard and looked down at the scanner, her voice trembling almost as much as her hands. It's nothing, sweetie. I'm just a little nervous today." "Nervous? Why?" Lily asked again, tilting her head. Mia's throat tightened. Her fingers pressed against the counter as if holding onto something invisible. Finally, she whispered, "Because today's my first day back after a long time. I wasn't sure I could do it." Daniel frowned slightly. "Back? Were you sick?" Mia shook her head quickly, her messy bun wobbling. "Not sick. Just, life got a little hard, that's all." She forced another smile and reached for the next item, but her hand trembled so badly this time that the carton of eggs nearly fell. Daniel caught it just in time. Their eyes met briefly, and in that moment, he saw something raw, fear, exhaustion, maybe even shame. "Hey," he said softly, setting the eggs on the counter for her. "It's okay. Take a breath." Her lips trembled as she whispered, "Thank you." There was an awkward silence, filled only by the rhythmic beep of scanned items. Daniel wanted to say more, maybe something comforting, but he didn't know how. He wasn't good with words, especially not when it came to emotions. Still, he couldn't ignore the way his chest tightened seeing her like that. Lily broke the silence again. "My daddy shakes sometimes too," she said proudly, "but that's when he's really, really tired from fixing cars." Mia smiled faintly. "Your daddy's a mechanic." "Uh-huh, he fixes everything, even my bicycle." Daniel chuckled. "Well, almost everything," he admitted, still working on the TV remote. That earned him a soft laugh from Mia, and for the first time, her shoulders relaxed a little. But the tremor didn't stop. When it came time to pay, Daniel reached into his worn-out wallet and handed her a few bills. Her fingers brushed against his as she took them, cold and trembling. He couldn't help but ask again, "You sure you're okay? You look like you haven't eaten all day." Her eyes darted up, filled with something like guilt. I'm fine. Just a rough week. But the truth slipped out a second later when her stomach growled quietly, loud enough for Daniel to hear. Her cheeks flushed bright red, and she quickly turned to bag the groceries, pretending it hadn't happened. Daniel hesitated. He'd been there before, those nights after Emily passed, when he'd skipped dinner just so Lily could eat. The feeling of pretending everything was fine while your world was quietly falling apart, he knew it too well. Hey, he said quietly, trying to sound casual, you like chocolate ice cream? She blinked, surprised. What? He smiled, holding up the tub. I bought too much sugar for just the two of us. You should take one home. On me. Mia shook her head immediately, her eyes glistening. No, I couldn't. You already paid for it. It's just ice cream, he said softly. Everyone deserves a little sweetness after a hard week. For a moment, she just stood there, torn between pride and gratitude. Finally, her lips quivered into a faint smile. You're kind, she whispered. Lily grinned. Daddy says kindness makes people strong. Mia's eyes filled with tears. She tried to blink away. She quickly handed Daniel his receipt and whispered, thank you, both of you. You don't know how much that means. As Daniel pushed the cart toward the exit, he glanced back one last time. Mia was standing still behind the counter, holding the ice cream to her chest, eyes closed, a tear rolling down her cheek. Something told him this wasn't just about being tired or nervous. Something much deeper was hidden behind that shaking, something painful she couldn't yet say. And though he didn't know it yet, that simple moment, one single dad's question at a grocery store, would soon uncover a story that would leave him speechless. That night, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about the cashier, Mia. The way her hands trembled, the pain hiding behind her polite smile, and the way her voice cracked when she said she wasn't sure she could do it. Something about her reminded him of himself from a few years ago, when every day felt like a mountain and he wasn't sure if he could keep climbing. He didn't know why, but he couldn't shake it off. A few days passed. Life rolled on in its quiet rhythm, work, school runs, laundry, and bills. But every time he passed that grocery store sign glowing in the evening light, her face came back to him. Those trembling hands, those eyes full of silent struggle. By Friday, Daniel made up his mind. After dropping Lily off at a friend's house, he drove to the store again, convincing himself he just needed to pick up a few groceries. But deep down, he knew it wasn't about milk or bread, it was about checking if she was okay. The store was a little busier this time. He scanned the registers until he spotted her, aisle 3, same uniform, same quiet face. But something was different. She looked even thinner, her cheeks hollowed, and there were dark circles under her eyes. He joined her line. When she finally looked up and recognized him, her eyes widened just slightly, surprise mixed with a touch of warmth. Hey, she said softly, trying to smile. Back again. Daniel nodded. Yeah, I forgot a few things the other day. And Lily wanted those rainbow marshmallows again. Her lips curved into a small, real smile this time. She's adorable. She is, he said proudly. Keeps me going. There was a pause as she scanned the items. Her hands were shaking again. Not just from nerves, it was worse now. When she reached for the bag, one slipped from her grasp and hit the floor. The sound startled her. Mia, Daniel said quietly. You're not okay, are you? She froze. Her throat moved as she swallowed hard. I'm fine. He shook his head slowly. You're not. Something inside her broke at that moment. The smile vanished. Her eyes filled with tears, and she pressed her trembling hands against the counter as if to steady herself. For a moment, she didn't speak. Then, in a whisper so faint he almost missed it, she said, I haven't eaten in 2 days. Daniel's heart clenched. What? She started, then stopped, wiping at her face quickly. I didn't mean to say that. I'm sorry. Please, just forget it. But he couldn't. He stepped closer, lowering his voice. What's going on, Mia? She took a deep breath, fighting tears. I used to have a different life, she began shakily. A good one. I worked in a small office, lived with my fiancé. Everything was fine, until he got into an accident last year. He didn't make it. Her voice cracked, and Daniel felt the air tighten in his chest. I couldn't handle it, she continued, trembling. I stopped going to work, fell behind on bills. Lost the apartment. I've been sleeping in my car for the past few weeks. I got this job just last month. It's part-time, but I'm trying. I really am. Daniel felt his throat tighten. He looked at her, this young woman trying so hard to hold herself together while the world had completely fallen apart. "Why didn't you tell anyone?" he asked softly. She gave a bitter laugh. "Who would care? Everyone's got their own problems. I don't want pity. I just need to make it through each day." Daniel was quiet for a long moment. He knew that kind of pride, the kind born from pain and survival. When she finished bagging his groceries, he didn't move. He just stood there, watching her struggle to keep her hands steady. Finally, he said, "When do you get off work?" She frowned, confused. "In about an hour." "Why?" "Because you're coming to dinner," he said simply. Her eyes widened. I can't." "You don't have to." "I'm not asking out of pity," he interrupted gently. "I'm asking because no one should have to eat alone in their car." Tears welled in her eyes again. She shook her head at first, but when she looked into his face, kind, sincere, and steady, she finally whispered, "Okay." An hour later, Mia sat at Daniel's small kitchen table, nervously twisting her napkin. The smell of roasted chicken filled the air. Lily sat across from her, excitedly talking about school, her stuffed bunny, and how her dad made the best mashed potatoes ever. Mia smiled for the first time in days, a real smile that reached her eyes. When Daniel served her plate, she hesitated before taking a bite, but as soon as the warm food touched her tongue, her eyes filled with tears again. She tried to hide it, but Daniel noticed. "You don't have to hold it in," he said softly. "Sometimes, crying helps." She put the fork down, covering her face with her hands as silent sobs shook her shoulders. Lily looked at her, confused, then got up and walked over, wrapping her tiny arms around Mia's arm. "It's okay," she said in her small, gentle voice. "Daddy says strong people cry too." That broke what little restraint Mia had left. She leaned forward, holding Lily close, sobbing quietly while Daniel sat in silence, letting her finally release everything she'd been holding inside. When she calmed down, Daniel spoke quietly. "You don't have to face this alone anymore, Mia. I've been where you are, lost, scared, pretending to be fine for the world. But you can't heal by yourself. Let people help you." She looked at him, her eyes red but softer now. "Why are you doing this for me?" He smiled sadly. "Because someone once did it for me. After my wife died, I was lost too. A neighbor brought me food, watched Lily when I couldn't get out of bed. That kindness saved me. Now it's my turn." The room fell quiet, except for the soft hum of the refrigerator. For the first time in a long while, Mia felt something she hadn't felt in months, safety. After dinner, Daniel packed a bag of leftovers for her. "You can stay in the guest room tonight," he said. "It's not fancy, but it's warm." She hesitated again, torn between pride and gratitude. But one look at Lily, who was already dozing off on the couch, and she nodded. "Thank you," she whispered. "For everything." Weeks passed, and Mia slowly rebuilt herself. Daniel helped her find a better job at the auto shop's office. Lily adored her, and laughter returned to their small home. One evening, as Daniel fixed dinner, Mia stood beside him, helping slice vegetables. Her hands, the same ones that once shook uncontrollably, were steady now. Daniel glanced at her and smiled. "See, no more shaking." She smiled softly. "Because I'm not scared anymore." He looked into her eyes and said quietly, "You never had to be." In that small kitchen, surrounded by warmth, laughter, and the smell of dinner, two people who had been broken by life slowly began to heal together. And Daniel realized that sometimes, a simple question at a grocery store can change not one, but two lives forever.